Yes, students. So we'll start with the next topic of this particular chapter using the work of auditor's expert. Okay, so at the intermediate level, you had SA 500, and there you had come across something called a management's expert, because management's expert and auditor's experts, the contents are very similar. Okay, so we'll have a recap also, like we'll understand how it works. Before that, we will make one very quick recap of what we have learned till now, which I expect you to do from time to time. And I wish that you remember, like this, you revisit these concepts from time to time, and after some time, no, you can leave one by one chapter, you can include another chapter, so like this, no, your mind will be very strong. So we are into chapter number 3. The first thing, SA 300, we had learned. SA 300 has got 4 elements, enough, 4 concepts. Then what are those? Planning, which we start about the 7 aspects. Then strategy, 5. Audit program, 3. Execution, 4. Then we started with the SA. After 300, 600. Okay, so we had got a principal, acceptance, for checking of the competency, audit procedures, which includes your advice, review, perform test, coordination, reporting. That's it. This is all about that particular chapter. If you, because see, very first thing, this is the heart. This is the heart. The topic which I'm talking here, no, this is the heart of it. That means, in the principle, this should be sitting in your brain. Other elements are they are all variations. They can ask you something different, but at the core, no, this should be there with you. What exactly, how the flow works. Then we started to deal with the SA 610. The SA 610 has got particularly work or using the assistance. Using the work has got 3 elements. Now, can I use the work? Okay, so that it can I use? That has got 3 elements called objectivity, competency, disciplined approach. Now, if you are going to use, okay, nature and extent of use, that depends upon the 2 elements, which work cannot be used. They are given some examples, and what is that significant judgments involved. Okay, so certain areas you will not be able to use their work. Okay, they told what areas you should not use, where the significant judgment is involved. And the third one is actual usage. Actual usage includes your coordination, reading the report, performing the activities. That's it, finish. Now coming back to the first thing, can you use? Then 2 elements, prohibition by the law, threat on objectivity and competence. Now, what is the nature and extent? Again, they told what are the factors you need to evaluate and which type of work you should be doing more and when you cannot rely on them. Okay, they have given the 4 elements. Factors to element around 3. They have given you this particular thing in the form of a chart. Then documentation, a special aspect. Okay, like how to use. This will have certain elements. We can say that first you coordinate, direction, supervision, okay, review, and then document the task. So this is the crux of this particular SA 610. Okay, so this is what we have learned. So today we will move on to the next topic, SA 620. Yes, so what does 610 is going to tell? Let me reduce my... Sorry, 620. Now 620 talks about the auditor's expert. Now first question should come to your mind. What do you mean by expert? Like, when to appoint an expert? What should be my considerations? Okay, like I'll give an example. Let us understand this example and then we will proceed. A very simple example. Like imagine your boss has gone to Italy, and when he comes back, he brings one portrait. Okay, he brings one portrait from Italy, and he invites you to his office. Now, this portrait looks like very similar to Mona Lisa portrait. And he says that this is actually Mona Lisa's sister, okay, Mona Lisa. And Leonardo da Vinci only has drawn this. Now, okay, you say fine, very good portrait because da Vinci has drawn, no? Now he says the cost of this is rupees 5 crore. Now immediately you start to wonder, Arey Baba, on what basis did he pay 5 crore? Is he really Mona Lisa was ever existing? Or did the Darwin really draw this? But all these questions you keep it with yourself because you feel it is none of your business. Why to intimidate him asking this type of tricky questions? So you keep quiet. The next day, okay, his financial statement comes to you. And in the financial statement, you get surprised that when you look at the balance sheet, you see that Mona Lisa portrait is sitting here and they are showing it as a 5 crore and they are saying this is our asset. Immediately ask him, sir, what is this? They say, look, Baba, we are into hotel business now. And this picture we have hung in our hotel. To see this picture, only a lot of customers are coming. Art enthusiasts are coming. But when they come, don't they drink tea and coffee? See, my business has improved. This is my business expenditure. Now you got into a real trouble now, students. Because at the end of the year, you are going to sign this financial statement. Now, in that financial statement, you have come across something, a very big material amount. Tomorrow, based on this, now you could have taken one bank loan by keeping this as a pledge. For this, now he will show, look, sir, our auditor is only certified. And I believe art you must have left in 10th standard only, except few. Okay. So now one very important question comes, how do you certify that the financial statement is true and fair? How do you know whether this is really worth? Because there are certain assertions related to this. One of the assertion is valuation. How do you know, does it really value 5 crore? It could be a duplicate one. And tomorrow if it is proved that it has to be a duplicate one, then entire 5 crore becomes worthless. Nobody will buy for 500 rupees also. But then one question comes, how auditor signed this? How did he certify this valuation is correct? Okay, first question comes, do you know about this art? That's the first question. Maybe you must have taken some training in art and then you must have come into CA. That can be another question. That means you yourself is that expert. In that case, SA 620 not becomes applicable. It doesn't become applicable because you yourself is an expert. Okay, you don't know anything about art. It's the first time you came across. Okay, maybe tomorrow you go into oil processing company like MRPL. First time you came across something called crude oil. Means you heard about it, but you didn't know about it, what exactly it is. Today you came across, or you might have gone into a client who is doing processing of the gold. Gold you must have purchased so many times, but how the process works, what is the difference between a carat and what is 24 carat and what is 22 carat, how much impurity, what, you may not have been aware that much in depth, but at the end of the year, you may have to certify their financial statement containing those inventories or whatever it is. Like how to do it. So when you don't know, you are left with no choice to seek the help from other persons. Now one question comes, who is this other person? Like for example, this Mona Lisa art, who can certify? Is that person who is next to your house? Okay, there is one painter who draws the human portrait and all. Can you go to him and ask, is he a right person? Because first thing, you felt a need now. That is very important. Necessity is the mother of all invention. SA 620 came because of one need only. What is the need? You are certifying financial statement and one item you don't understand what it is. Now, then who is that? You need to figure out like who should be that right person. Because the person who is next door to you, your neighbor who is drawing the human portrait, he is good in drawing human portrait, student, but he need not be a specialist in understanding or investigating whether the portrait is originally drawn by the Leonardo da Vinci or not. So what are the factors you consider while choosing one expert? Okay, I can give another analogy also. Like you have got some health issues. What do you do? Will you tear your stomach and do operation yourself? No, because you are not. But in movie and all, you have seen, no? Some people who are trained, okay, they get one bullet wound, they will make the, what is it called? This is one knife, they will make it hot, okay, or Arnold Schwarzenegger and all. They will take that bullet out and they will only stitch it. Because they don't need any expert, they have been trained. But you are not the one. If bullet is hit to you, then obviously you will choose one doctor. Now one question comes, which doctor? An MBBS who is having, your family doctor, will you go? Okay, no, because he may not be able to address that issue. You may have to go to a specialist now. Now, which specialist should I go? What factors I should consider? Because in everywhere, students, if I have to talk about the example of this Mona Lisa portrait or a bullet hitting to you, any expert comes into picture because there is one element of risk. And that risk is not simple risk, it is a complicated risk. Because if it was a simple risk, then we don't call them expert, anybody, because that skill is generalized. Somebody has got a very specific knowledge, special knowledge. That's why we call them experts. So, on what factors we have to evaluate? That's what we are going to see here. I hope you have got one very basic framework or understanding of what we are trying to see here. Yes, at the end of this session, you should be having a very good clarity about the so many concepts. Now, what is the scope of this SA 610? Then they say that SA 610 deals with the responsibilities of an auditor while using in the work in the field of an expertise other than accounting and auditing, and that work is used to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence related to the items in the financial statement. Now, the standard says very clearly, see, if your issue is related to any accounting matter and auditing matter, Are Baba, in India, you are that expert. Because other people look at you when it comes to accounting, when it comes to auditing. That's why you are called a chartered accountant alias auditor. See, relatives must have been started referring you, oh, auditor came. Because they don't understand the difference between accountant and chartered accountant and auditor. They think, because our traditional role was to get into public practice, whatever it is. So now our standard says very clearly, look, if you want to have any clarification related to auditing and accounting, you might have hired, like for example, transfer pricing, accounting. You don't know how to do it. So you might have hired one person, accountant or any expert or whoever it is, to advise them or to understand the transfer price accounting. Because maybe it is very complicated. And who must be that? That must be another CEO only. Because when you talk about accounting, a chartered accountant or any other, in any country also, who is doing into public practice, who is that chartered accountant of that country, that only person you must have appointed. Now, when you appoint such person, which standard governs? SA 220, because they become your team members. And now you are governed by their direction, supervision, consultation. You remember consultation of contentious matter? We can bring this transfer pricing consultation as a consultation. But they are not SA 620. Because you are the one, you should have been expert in auditing and accounting. So, SA 600 do not deal with the accounting and auditing profession, and any other field other than auditing and accounting it deals, except when a management expert is appointed. Now, who is this management expert? Management expert is just like your expert. Like, okay, what do you think, students? In my previous example, is that business owner a fool, a dumb? Is he a dumb? That somebody told him that this is Mona Lisa's picture drawn by Charles Darwin and it is 5 crore rupees, and he went and purchased at 5 crore rupees. No, he also must have thought about it. No, because first of all, everything starts with cash. He is taking business risk now. What is that? Hard cash. Something he is paying 5 crore rupees. Tomorrow it may not be worth 500 rupees also. So he is the one who takes the first risk now. We call them business risk. What is your problem? Accounting risk. What is that? Showing that in the balance sheet at a valuation of 5 crore. That is your accounting risk, inherent risk, which we'll discuss later. Now, he must have addressed this risk by talking to another expert, somebody. He must have consulted someone before buying this. This expert is called management expert. But please understand the difference between auditor's expert and management expert. The management expert need not be independent, because since he is working under the direction and guidance of this business, because he has appointed him, so he may not give independent opinion also. He must have been having some dealing, understanding with them. Followed, no? Like you must have gone to buy a diamond. Now they say that diamond is this, diamond is that. Do you know the quality of that diamond? So different grades are there. Then they will give you one certificate along with the diamond. Okay. Now that certificate is given by whom? An independent organization. Please understand. Now this is that independent. Okay. Can this gold, the diamond manufacturing company can force them to give fake certificate? No. This is the difference. In a management expert, when the appointment happens, they have got always right to remove that appointment. Okay, this is more like one independent certificate given by some independent institution, which creates a trust. So this auditor's expert is also same, but it is you are hiring. That's why we call them auditors. I hope this part is clear. Now, who should be that auditor's expert? It can be an individual, a human being, or it can be an organization, maybe an LLP, company, partnership firm, a firm, whatever, who is possessing an expertise in the field other than accounting and auditing. And very importantly, their work will be used by the auditor to obtain evidence about the appropriate, sufficient and appropriate evidence. So this could be auditor's internal expert who is a partner or a staff, because today you can form an LLP. When you form an LLP, now you can have, and in chapter number 19 we can see with whom partner can have a partnership. See, traditionally we always had a partnership with another CA, and we used to refer the work to other lawyers and architects. Okay, then we used to give this to CS, company secretaries, CMAs. But today, because we can provide a multidisciplinary services, because one organization may require different types of consulting, different perspectives. So today, all these people have formed together one LLP. Instead of referring to each other, they have formed one LLP. So when you talk about an auditor's expert, like you have got already, we have seen SA 250. We have already seen there that if you have got some problems with any compliance related things, first you ask the management. Management is not in a position to reply to you. You then speak to the management's, the entity's legal counsel. That is also not going to happen. Then you are going to refer. So who may be that reference? That can be another lawyer who is there within your organization only, with whom you must have had a partnership. Or you could have hired them as a full-time employee, because regularly 20 clients you have got this photograph issue, or including temporary stock, or auditor's firm, or a network of firm. That means this could have been connected with another firm. Both are using same. Okay, what is network? You'll see in chapter 19. They may be using same brand, same resources. It can be anyone, or it could be straight away an independent auditor. Okay, I can say that when a bullet has hit you, okay, so that bullet treatment should be given by an expert, first of all. Now, who can be that expert? It can be, say, maybe your brother, your father, your mother. Who are they? They are also trained doctors. Or it could be a totally independent doctor who could have given that. Or you could have hired a full-time doctor, anybody inside your team. I hope it's clear. Now, the management expert is the one which is exactly same like your auditor's expert. Okay, who is other than accounting and auditing field, but the main issue is work in that field is used by the entity. In case of auditor's expert, it is used by the auditor to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence. In management expert, it is used by the entity to prepare the financial statement. Okay, if it is not connected with the financial statement, we are not going to talk about them. Okay, so the first part, I hope you are very clear. Who is a management expert? Second thing, what is the auditor's responsibility for the audit? Okay, with the opinion, because already we have seen 610 where another human being comes called internal auditor. He may be a CA. We have seen 600, another CA comes, we can call him as another auditor who is also a CA. 402 comes, there is also one chartered accountant who is issuing one certification. Okay, management expert comes, there can be another person who is also maybe a CA. See, we have seen different places. Now 620 also talks about another human being. Now you are using their work in different places. Now, one fundamental question comes, can you shift your responsibility telling, look, this particular portion of the work I didn't do, this has been done by so and so? Yes, where only in this particular instance, where the branch audit has happened, provided you have fulfilled the responsibilities what is told by SA 600. That means review summary of the written report, sending them questionnaire, okay, visiting the branch, all those things, no suspicion comes, okay, all those cases you will be relieved. But in none of the other cases, you can tell that you have worked on the other, because auditor has got the sole responsibility for the opinion. That's why, students, you see all other places a very similarity when it comes to reporting. Same answer, whether it is 402, 620, 610, wherever, you see when it comes to reporting, no, see, 610 though you cannot report only. But a 402, because he is an independent, he is also an independent. So in such cases, no, you can see some reporting requirement which is very similar. So it's the sole responsibility. Auditor using auditor's expert, okay, nonetheless, it is going to reduce the responsibility. So auditor may accept the auditor's finding and conclusion, and it is their choice whether to accept it or not to accept it. Okay, so this is not going to get reduced. What is the objective? There are only two objectives. First, determine whether to use of an work of an expert. Like when we talk about the internal auditors, first question, okay, can I use their work? Second, if using the work of an auditor's expert, whether the work is adequate, okay, nature, timing, extent, and using the work. So similarly, students, here we have got the, yeah, I think, yeah, we had only two objectives for using the work, because we are talking about the work of an expert. We are not talking about their assistance. That means those auditors are, those independent experts are going to work, and they will give you some sort of reports, and those reports you will refer. Okay, I can say doctor also. A patient comes with some heart related issues. I can give that analogy. Now, what he will do? Now, this is a heart related issue. Now, doctor doesn't have sufficient equipment, doesn't have sufficient knowledge. Okay, he may have a fair understanding about what is heart attack and all. So what he will do? He will send to an ECG specialist, a heart specialist. Now, heart specialist, what he will do? He will give some sort of reports, which is produced by the doctor, and then he will form an opinion. Okay, do you require special attention, immediate attention, whatever it is? First question, whether do you need the work of an expert? That's the very first question you need to answer. And if the answer is no, you don't need only, then actually second requirement objective do not come into picture, and entire SA 620 only doesn't come into picture. But if the first answer for the first objective is yes, we need, then second, which is the big thing, which talks about like if you need, then what are the factors you consider so that you feel that the work is adequate for your purpose. So there are two objectives. Now one question comes, Chalo Baba, we discussed that an auditor's expert is the one who is expert other than in accounting and auditing. Tell me, can you give me some example of areas of expertise? Please remember examples, specific example. So whenever we talk about example, they are not exhaustive. They can be much more than what we are going to see. So for a guidance sake, we have given some examples of area which an auditor can be using, okay, which is not related to accounting or auditing. Like for example, valuation of complex financial instruments, land, building, plant, machinery, etc. Now all these financial instrument, okay, whether it should be valued at FVTPL in in days you are going to learn it, FVOCI, derivative instrument, you have got a land in a very complicated land, okay, so its fair value is not measurable easily, plant and machinery is very unique in itself, okay, impairment is going to happen. Now what is that extent of impairment happen, we are not able to figure out. So valuation, because we appoint a building valuation expert, the one who have completed that course or who is an architect. So these are all the valuation of complex instrument. Actuarial calculation of valuation liabilities. So for this, now you have to refer India's 19, present a value of defined benefit obligations. Okay, when you talk about defined contribution, you don't need any expert. But when you talk about a benefit, you need an expert who has to find out what is your liability today, which you have promised to pay 40 years or 50 years down the line for a retiring employee. So its valuation requires an actuary. Then estimation of oil and reserve, gas reserve. Maybe you are an auditor of oil company and they have got inventory in days too. But valuation of this, okay, is a very difficult task because it requires a different type of skills. So interpretation of the contracts, laws and regulation, because a lot of compliances you may have to see, fines and penalties can come, going concern issue could have happened. Okay, you might have violated something and you don't know, like Sahara case I told you. What is the impact of it? You need one lawyer. Analysis of complex, unusual tax compliance issues. Okay, we generally, when I ask auditor is in expert in which field, generally we get tax, but Papa, please understand, tax is a law actually. It should not have been our expertise. But why every practicing CS are into tax field? Because tax has got a flavor of accounts. Other subjects don't have the flavor of accounts, like Companies Act, okay, your Hindu Succession Act, or whatever acts you take. Okay, GST. Why we are into GST? Because GST has got a connection to accounts. And wherever accounts comes, we come into picture. That's why when you talk about tax laws, by its very nature, we are not considered experts because lawyers are considered experts. You see the language of any tax law, very similar to other acts, notwithstanding anything, this, that, and all. Okay, but it has become our niche area because of the accounting thing. Yes, but any complex or unusual tax compliance issues, yes, you may seek an expert help. So these are all the examples of area where expert may be required. I hope it's clear, friend. We will draw one chart also from time to time, so that because this is a very big standard. To go to mind map, I think we have already written concept 4, auditors, expert. And just before we proceed, friends, I just want to tell you, okay, now who is an expert actually? If you observe very closely yourself, friends, now expert is the one who have got clarity of thoughts. Okay, first element, plus that person has got a well coordination. See, there are two elements. When you talk about any expert, there are two elements. One, there is the clarity of thoughts, which we can call mind. Coordination, which is called a body. Mind is something I can call it as a thoughts, okay, which we can control. And body is something, a gift by the nature, which we cannot control. But when this mind and body joins hands together, we see miracles. For this, what you need? See, mind is something what you can control, no? That is nothing but your thoughts. You have to pay attention, friends. What is thought control? Pay attention. That's the only thing you can do in life, actually. Is there anything else which you can really control? You cannot control. Can you control your body? No. You're controlling body through your thoughts. So the only and only one element you can control in your life is your attention, paying attention. And when you practice, repeat, paying attention to something and bring your body parts up, like you bring your hand, you bring your eyes, you bring your ears, and this coordination goes, repeats with the paying attention, then slowly you develop that expertise. That means you become distinct from others, because at the outset, no, everything looks very complicated at the outset. This is what every scientists are going to tell. You see Albert Einstein, you take his reference, I'll always take his reference. He sees that out of clutter, no, there is always simplicity. There is a simplicity. But to reach to that simplicity, you need to constantly pay attention and repeat certain things again and again. And suddenly, students, out of nowhere, you find a very fantastic thing. You feel that you feel like you are controlling that. I hope this point is clear. So please pay attention on something what you are doing. Hope you enjoy that, because the purpose of life is to enjoy. When because you enjoy, then only you pay attention. If you don't enjoy, you don't pay attention. And repetition also you pay attention. Okay, you enjoy that repetition because every repetition will tell you something different. This is my experience, friends. Because if you feel, array baba, it's the same thing, I have already said it. Nah, gone. That means you're not enjoying. Please ask question to yourself. Don't ask someone else. Don't seek the answer outside. Know yourself. Okay? When each and for me, what I experienced in my life, each and every repetition tells me something different. See how many times I've been teaching this audit. But for me, every time something new comes into my mind. Every time. So that every time you learn something new, every repetition you learn something new, you are becoming expert. 3 to 4 times you do, you understand in and out. Okay, so second thing I want to tell you with related. So you understood how to become an expert. Okay, simple. Pay attention and bring your body parts, make them to coordinate and fully get involved. Let you be into that trance. This is what I also found. The trance is the state of mind where you always think about something. See, we call in Purana somebody did tapasya and all. What is tapasya, Baba? What is tapasya? Tapasya is paying attention. What Ravana did, okay, or what anybody Bhagirath did. They always constantly paid an attention to something, and when they prolong it for a very long period of time, they develop skills, they develop expertise, and nobody can defeat them. Okay, only thing is they are not immortals. That is different story. Okay, but it was defeating them was very difficult because they understand some knack. They understand some. They had some skills. Okay, we can interpret it like this. So, and that time, no, they don't want anything in life. Okay, I don't know. You must have come across this type of feeling. Okay, means okay. One of the example is like marriage time. When our say proposal gets finalized and we get committed to someone, our mind always starts thinking about it. Ah, that's called a trance. That means your every energy is diverted to one thing. So first question, are you getting excited? Do you feel that, okay, when that day is going to come? Which one? Exam day. Just like, don't we feel when the marriage day is going to come? Our marriage. Ah, same thing. Or maybe anything. You need to have one vision goal, no? That you should always be feeling from. You should submit to that goal. Your mind should be always wondering about it. In that case, no, nothing counts. Okay, second thing I want to tell you, you understood how to become an expert. Second, you have to like seek for like you may wish that you want to become an expert and you will pray God. Recently, God make me expert. But recently I saw one very fantastic video, student. I really loved it because I just want to go inside every video. It is all about somebody's wish. Okay, and I went to Guru recently. I also had one. I generally don't ask God, but recently I asked God after learning about that video. That person says, okay, somebody has got a problem, and that another person gives an advice to them in that video that God do not make things happen. Please remember, God do not make things happen, but God gives opportunity to make it happen. Ah, fantastic. Loud. Go to the depth of what they are trying to tell. Like if I tell God, oh God, make me an expert faculty. Will God make me by next day? Will He make expert faculty? Not possible, no. For this, any wish you ask God, God is not going to fulfill that by next day. But what God may give? God may give you an opportunity so that you can utilize that and you can become. Okay. So what is the very first opportunity we come across in our life? It's the life itself, we being alive. Is it not a good opportunity God has given us? Second, health. Ah, fantastic opportunity God should give us. Third, liberty. Which none of these three we realize unless we lose them. Liberty in the being in jail. Ah, you may not, we in our dream also we may not have thought about it. But imagine, students, we getting landed up in jail. God, no, gone. Our liberty is gone. After this, everything is an opportunity only, right? Like we are sitting and talking, opportunity. Okay, we got a books to read, opportunity. We heard someone telling some concepts, opportunity. See, every single opportunity when you start utilizing, Tell me, did who is giving such opportunities to us? Who gave that book to me? Where I am? Where is this place? See, once you realize that you are filled with the opportunities in and around you, then your journey to become an expert becomes very easy. No, because I think like that. I seek always opportunity. Feel everything is like talking to you is a great opportunity of my life now. I should consider. I can say this is my fourth attempt actually. So three attempts in the past I had gone. When I reflect myself, I didn't use that opportunity. I missed to use that opportunity. Now I realize what mistakes I made and all. So this time, no, I'm talking to you. I will consider it as a great privilege and an opportunity. Okay, that is my perspective. Like this, you also please think why we are talking. We are talking about being an expert there. So, auditor's expert. First, we will write scope. Not applicable for accounts plus audit. Simple language. Not applicable for management. For these two people, it is not applicable. And other than that, you have used anybody who is having expertise, it is applicable. Now, examples of field of expertise, because here we said only not applicable for accounts and audit. That means these two fields you are not expert. So which other field or examples of fields? One, valuation of land building. You can add financial instruments, etc. Actuarial valuation of liabilities. Oil estimation. Okay, I hope you understand. Estimation of reserves, oils and reserve. Contract interpretation. Complex tax compliances. So these are all the areas are called a field of expertise. Now, one objective. What is the objective of SA 620? So we have got two objectives. One, determine need of expert. Do you need an expert? Second, determine whether work is adequate. Okay, so now what is your requirements? We'll write the requirements first. Then we can discuss one by one. Requirements, or how do we fulfill this objective? The very first requirement you have got is determine need for expert. So what are the considerations, sub factors? We'll see that when it is needed. Now, if my auditor, if the client is using management expert, do we still need them? Okay, those are all the factors. you need to keep in mind. The second requirement is if you decide to use nature, timing, extent of audit procedures. If you decide to use them, what is your nature, timing, extent of the procedures? Third, okay, you finalize now that this is the auditor. You need to check competence and objectivity of expert. Okay, just like once you finalize, okay, I will go for this, like you go for one doctor, don't you check the competence and objectivity of that expert? You need to evaluate. Then obtaining understanding of field of expertise. Now, when you go to a doctor for heart related issue or any other issue, first of like the specialist or say kidney related issue, whatever, you went to a doctor, don't you ask questions, students? Don't you try to understand what exactly is the issue? This is like, see, you cannot completely, as an auditor, you cannot blindly relieve on an expert, because we already seen at the responsibility level. You cannot shift the responsibility of on an expert. It is ultimately it is your responsibility. So you need to obtain that understanding of the field of expertise. But by now, you have already appointed. See, at this part of time, you didn't know whether you need an expert or not. Yes, you decided you need an expert. If you need, then what type of appointment procedures you need to appoint, like what extent or what type of when you need that expert, that you need to decide. Third, you actually figure out one human being and say, okay, let me appoint this as an expert. Then you should consider their competency and objective. By now, expert has come into picture. You are going to understand the nature. Okay. And then you need to have an agreement with expert. And your Q&A starts from here. Because up to here, no, they have not asked any questions. No? All things are highly probable. They can ask you question on need for expert or procedures or objectivity, whatever. They can ask questions on any 4 requirement. But in the RTP, MTP, test your understanding, test your knowledge, no question exists up to 4. Question starts from here. Now, once they have done, evaluate adequacy. Okay, how to check the adequate? There are some sub processes, we will see that. And when it is not adequate, what to do? So many questions comes. And the last one, reporting considerations. That means if the auditor is going to report, can he give a reference of this expert? The answer is yes. Under what circumstances? And if he does like that, then what is that additional matters you need to state? So your entire SA 620 is divided in 7 sub concepts. Please understand. So here you see one question can come which today only you can forget. Okay, on the day of examination only you will write straight away examples of field of expertise. Do you need to revise this? Do you need to recap this? Not required, because you know you only can put some other examples also, since you understood who is a expert. But these are all the things, this schema should be sitting in your brain now. Like, if I have to determine the need for expert, what are the factors I should consider? What if the management has hired them? Okay, then what is my nature, timing, extent? What factors what type of agreement I should have? Okay, if I find the work is not adequate, what should I do? So can I give a reference in the report? Yes, so this is what we are going to learn from now. Yes, go back. Just 1 minute. We can take one minute water break. Okay, so we'll start with the first requirement. So my first requirement here will be, okay, please you also take a pen and start scripting whatever I'm writing. Later mind map and all will do it properly. So when I talk about the first requirement, requirement is determining need. See, this has got 4 sub concepts. First question, why do we need experts? What they will help us? How appointing them will be useful to us? Second, can we become expert ourselves instead of hiring a third party? Can I learn that? Can I become an expert? That's the second thing you need to consider. Third, okay, what is that I should consider to decide whether I need? First of all, I need why. See, please understand, all 4 concepts are different. First of all, why I need. Second, can I become an expert? Now, what is that I should consider when deciding to use? Okay, and the last element is management expert has been used by the organization. Can I rely? Why? But despite I may decide that I don't want to use them. Okay, or when the management expert has been appointed, can I use their work? Like in your house only, there is one doctor. In your PG, there is one doctor. Arey, Baba, they are there in your house only. Can I use them? So now we have to answer these 4 questions, like why an expert is needed, can we become an expert, what are the considerations to keep in mind while planning to need for an expert, and if the entity is using management expert, can I use their work instead of my expert? First of all, ask one question, why do you need a ECG specialist? Why do you need a heart specialist? Okay, because they help you to understand. First thing, they will help you to understand, okay, your environment. Okay, they'll give you knowledge rather than a doctor. A heart specialist will give you better understanding about your heart. Second, not only they will tell you something about your heart, like how to maintain a good heart. Okay, should I eat ghee or coconut oil or whatever? I hope, because we trust them, no? Because they're in a better position to tell rather than anybody telling. Because one person tell coconut is oil is good, and some person says ghee oil is good, and some person will say palm oil is good. We don't know. So whom will seek? Expert. Who? Heart specialist. We trust them. Then whatever they say. Then they can, not only that, they can help you to identify risk. They will take you through some test, and they can help us to identify the risk. Not only that, they can help us to respond to that risk. If any risk has been identified, they will make a decision. Okay, should you need a surgery, or with the tablets only you can have the solution? Okay, and then they can help us to set up the further lifestyles or further audit procedures, future audit procedures. Like in future, what should be my lifestyle? They can help us to guide. Okay, and ultimately they will help us to evaluate my overall response or evidences what I have got. Okay, so they can help us. Similarly, students, if I had to go back into standards on auditing, now which all fields you require an expert with, that examples we have already seen. So if you feel that, then you will realize that the balance sheet is filled with experts only there. Every one item, we may require one type of an expert. Now, why? That is next question. Now, do you really need an expert for inventory valuation, for the defined benefit obligation, or you don't need it? That is a different story. But today, why do you need it? Because what assistance they can help, how they can help you. Okay, this is a question. They can help you to obtain an understanding of the entity and the environment, including the internal control. They can help you to identifying and assessing. Assessment means measurement, overall risk or assertion level risk. In risk of material misstatement, they can help you to define overall response for the, because we said, what do you mean by assessment of the risk? Identifying and assessing. How do you identify the risk? By risk assessment procedure. What do you mean by assessment? You classify that risk into overall risk or assertion level risk. If it is overall risk, they will help you to develop overall response. If it is assertion level risk, they will help you to develop assertion level response, like TOC, substantive procedures. And then they will help you to evaluate the sufficiency and appropriateness of the audit evidence. Second question comes, can I become an expert, or can I be and get that understanding? An auditor who is not an expert in the relevant field which is other than accounting and auditing, because entire life, a significant portion of your life, say 5 years, you are devoted to accounts and audit. So will you be able to? Yes, definitely you can become an expert. Whatever you set your mind into, you can obtain that sufficient understanding of that field without an auditor's expert. But how? Okay, one, you need to have an experience in auditing entities that require expertise. Now what happens, students? Like, see, you are not a singer, but every that singing concert, bhajana mandali and all, you go, you sit, listen, okay, you repeat, you sit and start singing, and suddenly you start singing there. That sarigama's gandakali you don't have, nobody formally trained you. Okay, what is raga? Tell me the difference between uday raga and bhairavi raga, you don't understand. But what happened, no? With that experience, with when you experience something, with the constant experience, you gain that expertise. But the problem is that is not recognized. Please remember, I spent 3 years, fantastic years of my life in learning guitar. Means I was crazy, I can say. Whenever I find, I will sit with the guitar. That is the amount of efforts I have put in learning guitar. And today, you tell me any song, I will just play. I know it. That Swarajnana has come inside me. But if you tell me go to the stage and play, can I play? I can't play. Why? Because I learnt myself with one string. There was no guru for me. At least if the basics, if I'd have somebody would have taught me, okay, how to hold the string, what is sarigama in that, or whatever pamaris or whatever, then my practice would have made more sense. That's why, students, we have got two elements. That's why we see you need guidance, you need practice. I can say guidance is more like a luck. Practice is within your control. Everywhere life is 50-50. Followed, no? When that guidance and practice, it's not that, see, with the practice will take time on your own to figure out. Like, see, for this subject to understand on your own, okay, from where things are coming, how they will ask you, what is it takes time for you. Okay, somebody has already spent time, so from them you take guidance. So what it will help? It will save time. Please understand, just saves time. But the real true learning comes to you, students. Please understand, the true learning comes to you when your mind and body cooperate with each other with that attention and the practice. Okay, that's why experience can happen, or it can happen through an education. Like, see what we are doing now, guidance. So you may enroll into formal courses. That course now gives you in a structured way a knowledge, and that knowledge has been accumulated from different minds. See what we are reading here, study material. It is not one person's contribution, students. So many human minds have contributed. Are we not lucky to have that document in our hand? Imagine if this study material was not there. Can you believe now how you would have acquired this knowledge? It would have been very difficult. But what formal courses will do, no, it will bring a focus on the subject matter what you're going to study, or you discuss with the individuals possessing such expertise. Okay, and please understand, such discussion differ from consultation, because it's a 220 becomes applicable. Okay, and we have already seen that 220 is outside the scope. With an auditor's expert with a set of circumstances encountered, their expert is given all relevant facts that will enable expert to provide advice the information, and or you can discuss with the other auditors who have performed the similar engagement. Follow? Okay, I can say, how do you know about that field of expertise? Like, I can say that you have every small wound you started to treat yourself. Okay, slowly you understood how to treat your body, or you can get through some course, you can go through internet and understand, okay, if I have fever, what to do. Or you can discuss with, say, your parents or your friends. Okay, they say suggest Dolo 650 you take, you're done. So you need not go to a doctor. Point is simple. Point is, they can ask you an examination question, very important, that if you don't want to go to an expert, what is your alternative now? Then you only have to become. How? These are all the three factors. Yes, so first part we have seen how they are going to assist you, how appointing them is going to help you. Okay, in how they can help, I can say, maybe here We said why, no? No, we can say how it is useful. Okay, we can change it. Why do we need it? We can put it that here. What are the factors we should consider? Do I really need it now here? Or do I need? Why I require it now? How it is going to be useful? They told, okay, these are all the areas they can help us to understand. Now, if I don't want to go to them, then you can update yourself. The third consideration comes deciding whether to use. Whether should I need it now or can I delay that? First of all, I don't know. That's a very important question, because if you are yourself know, or you have enrolled into course and learnt it, then rest of the standard won't become applicable only because you decided not to use them. But since you don't know, what is that factor you may consider to choose an auditor's expert? Now, what is that considerations when deciding whether to use an auditor's expert? Maybe whether management has used an expert, first consideration. Now, you wanted to see that Conalisa picture. Before you hire an expert, first you ask the client only, because see, please understand, student. Please understand one very important factor. Why this is the first factor you need to understand. Why they have given this as a first factor. First thing, this business is existing to make money. They are using somebody's money and they need your assurance. So when you go as an auditor to give you that assurance to the investors that their money has been well utilized, they will pay you fees. And on this audit fees, there is no ROI, because this is sunk cost from the costing language. You are not going to get any returns. Why? Because this is only for compliance's sake. Now, that means that the business is not going to get any benefit. Only investors will get that benefit there because of your opinion. Now, you tell, okay, you're all out of pocket expenses. What is the only cost auditor will incur? His establishment charges, his electricity cost, his auditor staff fees, stipend. This is the fee. So out of this fee, he has to meet all these expenses. And all the other cost, no, is called out of pocket, because it is fee plus out of pocket expense. So auditor will get reimbursement. Okay. Now one point comes. If you hire expert, will expert charge you money? The answer is yes. Like when you go to a doctor, doctor says to go and do scanning. Now, will the scanning person charge you money? Yes. Now tell me, will the doctor pay that, or the you have to, patient has to pay? Patient only has to pay. So this expert's cost is also borne by this person. Imagine, students, you have already taken one scanning. Just one day before or 2 days before. You go to a doctor. Now, your doctor says, go and do the scanning. Now, won't you tell, sir, I have already taken the scanning, please see this. Now, what if the doctor refuse to say, no, I don't want to see your scanning, you have to do the scanning only in that institution. The moment you tell that, no, this person gets one thought, is this doctor getting a commission from them? Because he is making a patient to pay. He is not willing to see the report which the patient has independently done. Now, very first thought comes, is this doctor and this scanning company is having a tie-up now? Similar thought will come to a company also, no? Because when the company is using a management expert and you tell, no, I don't want that management expert. The company has already paid them to buy this 5 crore rupees worth of portrait. He must have paid 10 lakh rupees. Now you bring your expert and say, please certify this and pay 10 lakh rupees to him. The client will shout. He may ask you one straightforward question on the face. In that 10 lakh, how much commission is paying you? So that's why, students, very first thing you have to check whether the management is using the expert. In that case, no, you may decide to shift to the using management expert, and suddenly from 620, 500 becomes applicable. Second, nature and significance of the matter. Like you went to a doctor telling stomach ache, and doctor is suggesting MRI. Some stomach ache or hand ache. If it's a small thing, then we don't need an expert. It must be really such a critical issue, no? Then only you need an expert, right? So, second thing you need to consider, what is the nature? What is that? Nature means what exact issue is all about. And what is this importance? Like you went with some brain related issues or heart related issue. See the nature of, like you went to leg pain. Nature of issue is very minute. Okay, and doctor may suggest, okay, put some oil, take this tablet. But when it comes to heart or brain, nature is very serious. That's why it becomes very significant, including complexity. Like if the patient had got some previous health issues, then this can make it more complicated. Like if the patient has got some type of complex business operations, like for example, that client who is there purchased the 5 crore rupees Mona Lisa picture, he is already having some operations in that Italy. Oh, then this can become more complicated. That means this could be a tie up there. God knows. Or the risk of misstatement involved, which is talking directly to a materiality amount involved, or expected nature of the procedures to respond to the identified risk, including auditor's knowledge and experience with the work of expert. Means first question, do you know yourself? All these 4 factors you need to evaluate to decide, do you need an expert? Are you clear, student? I hope all those 4 sub concepts are totally different. First concept talks about what help you can get from an expert. Second concept talks about, can you become an expert? Third, do you need an expert right now in this organization, in this context? Okay. And the fourth question, there can be certain circumstances when the management expert might have been appointed. Okay. Now, can you use their report? Like patient comes and says, look sir, I have already taken this scanning. Now, is that scanning meets your requirement? Is that scanning meets your requirement? Now, what are the factors you need to consider? I can say these are sub-concepts of this particular point. The next thing, when management has used a management expert, when the management has used the management expert in preparing the financial statement, the auditor's decision whether to use or not to use depends on that. Which factors? It depends upon nature, scope, and objectives of the management's work. Okay, what is the nature? Like you wanted a scanning of entire body, say for example, but the patient has done the scanning of only stomach. Now you tell me, will this particular scanning report will be used by the doctor? This is not possible because his scope is limited. The what assertions, like for example, I can say something like this, friends. Again, I can connect to the same Mona Lisa picture. Now, when you talk about the 5 crore rupees portrait, the important consideration of that accountant, maybe only that expert, will be the valuation. Are Baba, only one set, this is one of the assertion, no. Besides this, there are 4 assertions: existence, completeness, and your existence, valuation, rights and obligation. Now, what on earth you know that do you really own it? You have paid 5 crore, but have you pledged it somewhere? Because you may have to tell that. You may not have the ownership on that right till now. So who is going to certify whether you are really the owner of it or not? A valuation expert won't tell. Valuation expert says, what is the value of this? That's it. That's why the very first factor, you need to understand the nature, scope, and objectives of the work. And second, whether the management expert is employed by the entity or a third party. Like you have gone to buy a diamond. Did you trust that? Yes. Why? Now, have they been internal employees or they are independent third parties? They are independent third parties. Like when we talk about a internal auditor, say for example, internal auditor could be an employee of the organization or it can be an independent practicing CA. Now you tell me, students, among both, whom do you trust? Whose work you decide to take? That independent practicing CA, because he must have been covered with the standards on internal audits. He is bound by professional misconduct cases because he is having so many clients. He don't want to take risk with this one client. But an internal employee, the entire money is coming from one employer only. No. I hope you are clear. Like why you have to consider whether you are employed. Because if you are employed, your 100% of the revenue comes from one person. So your objectivity can be a problem. Tomorrow you may listen to this employer. But what this employer gives here only 5% of the income coming to this practicing CA or practicing expert. So this practicing expert may not give you fake report because he don't want to take responsibility, and tomorrow his license is lost because of that 5% income. No, he may not take that. You see how beautifully everything is connected to money. Now, extent the management can exercise the control or influence over the work. Again, that depends upon whether you are employed or not employed, or he may be a third party. But if you are giving 90% of the income to this third party, then you will be in a position to influence this third party also. So, to what extent you can control their work? Then, management experts' competency and capability. The one who was appointed, he is not expert. Then you may not decide, you may decide not to use. Like first question doctor will ask, from where you did this scanning? He says, sir, I only did this. Okay, my brother did it with this machine purchased from Amazon. The doctor says, Arey Baba, I cannot take such scanning reports. So you need to have a proper scanning report, because here the problem is with the competency and the capability, whether they are subject to technical and performance standards. Now, what is this technical and performance standards or other professional industry requirement? Like students, a practicing CA is governed by professional ethics, like how you should perform, what should be the code of conduct. Okay, so many things are governed. And please understand, once you become the member students, you are under the control of our mother ICA. You don't want to take risk. Why? First of all, to get this certification only, we take so much risk in our life and we take big journey and do. Do you wish to lose that overnight? No. So we have to always listen to our mother, because mother always has got one Brahmastra with her. You do something which is not acceptable, she will remove you from the membership. Nikal bahar. Okay? That's why we always keep in mind what our mother is telling, institute is telling, because we don't want to bring disrepute to the institute. Imagine somebody who is not having anybody there to ask. No, that person has got no risk to lose. No. That's why students, only doctors have to practice? Tell me. There can be somebody who is better than a doctor out of their experience, but legally they are not permitted to practice. Why? Because see, you can control these people's behavior through one qualifications. You can control their behavior, but you cannot control somebody who doesn't have a qualification, because they don't have anything to lose. Understood? No, you understand the cash implication, like why we are telling that you should be subject to technical and professional standards, because you have, when you are subject to technical and professional standards, you have got one thing, very valuable thing to lose, if you don't listen to somebody. That's why this is the factor you need to evaluate, whether the management expert who was appointed, is he subject to such professional standards. Then that level of trust increases. Are any controls are there within the work entities or the management work? Now, does the entity controls their work? If no control, then there is a problem. But if they have got better controls to see that management is doing his job properly, you can have the better trust. Okay, so these are all the 6 factors you need to evaluate. There can be more questions, friends. In the original standard, then there is one more question. When you decide not to use management's work, these are all the same replication. When the scope is limited, okay, when entity is able to influence, when they lack competence, when they are not subject to professional standards. See, same question we can answer in another way. The question is, the entity used one management expert, they have already paid money to them, but the external auditor decided not to use his work. Why? What are the factors? What must have been resulted into it? These are all the factors, that the scope is limited. Okay, same thing in a negative form you will speak. I hope the first requirement is very clear to you. Yes, so we will make a small note of the first requirement, that from time to time we will understand it. So requirement number 1, determining need for an expert. Determining need for an expert. Okay, the first sub concept here. How experts assist. Okay, so the expert assistance in understand entity, environment, internal control, ROMM, overall response, further audit procedures. I think it's very easy to remember, no? Very easy. SA 315. Identify and assess ROMM. SA 330. Overall response and further audit procedures. And last one, evaluate SAAE. SA 450. 315, 330, 450. The second concept comes here, B. How to become expert. There are three ways. One, experience. Second, education. Discussion with other auditors. So you can get that experience any field, whatever thing you set your mind to, students, in your life, you can get that experience. Factors determine the need. Why do we need? First is whether management expert is hired. We can simply say whether management expert is hired. Nature and significance matter, because the matter may be very serious, very significant. Third, risk involved in the matter. Auditors, knowledge in the matter. Like Rambo, Arnold Schwarzenegger, they may be expert in taking the bullets out, but you may not know the bullet. And now question comes, where it has hit. It has just hit to your, say, slightly to your hand. Nature and significant is low. You may have just go to a doctor and do have a bandage, but it has gone inside your stomach. Okay, it's very simple, problematic, very significant, and risk is also very high. And the last concept here, you are going to focus use of management expert. So can you use the management expert? When the entity has appointed the management expert, can you use them? That depends on what? One, nature and scope of management expert work. What is his nature and the scope? Second, whether employed or independent party. It can be an independent party, but whether management can influence. Then nature, fantastic. Scope is also fantastic. It's the third party, and management as cannot influence. But then comes competence. Is he competent? Then technical professional standards. Are he subject to any professional standards? And controls within entity on his work. what type of internal control the organization established on its work. Okay, I hope it's done. So write the second requirement, then we'll discuss. Nature, timing, extent of audit. See, there are so many uncertainties in the first requirement only, students. First of all, expert may not be required. Then we need not talk about second topic. Second, auditor himself may decide to do it, or auditor may decide to rely on the work of a management expert. See, in any of these circumstances, no. Okay, your nature, timing, extent of the audit procedures related to the expert work will change. That means the second provision doesn't become applicable only. It will cross through everything, and still auditor decide no, he need an expert. In such cases, your nature of procedures, your timing of procedures, and extent of procedure, that means what you are going to do now. Okay, you need an expert. What you are going to do? Will you do substantive procedures, or will you ask that expert to do it? When you are going to hire that expert, do you want that expert right now, or you want after 6 months, or you want only after the financial year close? And to what extent you want? Do you want him to be with you forever, or 2 months to be here on the site, or just like can he be somewhere else? So these are all the factors you need to, aspects you need to consider. Okay. So now, what is that nature, timing, and extent of the audit procedure? The nature, timing, and extent of the audit procedures are going to vary depending upon the circumstance. Okay, every patient is not same. So if the doctor has to suggest that go to a heart specialist, for somebody he may not say immediately, somebody he may say go after 1 month, somebody may say go right now. So the nature and extent of the audit procedures are going to be different, what a doctor is going to perform. And this comes into picture only after the first requirement, that expert is needed. Only after we establish that, then only this will go to happen. But the nature, timing, and extent of the procedures can vary depending upon the circumstance. So what is that factor auditor should consider? First thing is nature of the matter to which expert's work is related to. Okay, what is that expert is supposed to do? Do I know anything, something about it? If you know something about it, preliminary activities you may decide to do. Nature of the work you only may decide to do. Complicated part, you may hand over that to that accountant, that expert, because otherwise the client will shout. The risk of misstatement involved in which that expert's work is related, if the risk seems to be very high, then you may immediately want them, and you want to extensively research. Significance of that work in the context of audit, if the work is going to impact highly, okay, you may have to do it immediately. Auditor's knowledge of the experience, and whether the subject of auditors, whether that expert is subject to audit firm's quality control procedures and policies. Now, generally what happens, students, when such experts are appointed, they are not bound by your quality control procedures, because your quality control procedures are told in SQC1, like how you need to ensure the quality, leadership responsibility, ethical requirement, your client acceptance, okay, HR, guidance, direction. Now, in that expert client also, expert firm also, do they have similar things? If their firm is also subject to something similar to SQC1, then you can be rest assured that that expert will do their job properly. So you may decide to involve them less or only at the end of the year. But if they are not subject to the firm's quality control policy, which is very similar to you, or their firm's quality control policies are different, then you may have to make them align with your firm's policy control policy and procedure. That's why your extent of involvement, okay, may be more. So when you talk about deciding the nature, timing, and extent of the audit procedure, auditor should consider these 5 factors. What is the nature of the matter? What is the risk in the matter? What is the significance of the matter? And what is my knowledge? And it's, if you see, this is very similar to this: nature of the matter, significance of the matter, risk of the matter, your knowledge about the experience. So it's the very same thing. So they may ask you why it varies from organization to organization, because these are all the factors. And one more thing is, are they subject to quality control policies? And now, what are the factors that suggest that you need a different or more extensive procedures? Otherwise, would have been the case. Like for example, when you refer, okay, what is your general recommendation to any patient? You are a doctor. Any patient comes to you, you say heart related issue, you identify, you say go there, go to the doctor. Now, whether you tell them go immediately, okay, look for these cases and then you go, or start doing these exercises, if this problem doesn't solve in 1 month, then you go, or should you go to an entry level heart specialist, or should you go to a surgeon or expert? These things depends upon these many factors. Fine. Now, sometimes no, you may decide to do in a more extensive procedure. That means when you refer to an expert, you tell them that, okay, Baba, this is the additional factors you need to keep in mind. This is the way you need to, along with the ECG, you do MRI also. So, what factors suggest that you need more extensive procedure? One, the work of an expert relate to a significant matter involving subjective and complex judgment. What is subjective, students? Okay, they are subjective, they are not objective, they are not measurable. You cannot observe them straight away. Like MCQs. MCQs are objective. You can measure that. 1 or 2, 1 or 0. But subjective are more like a descriptive. It's dependent on the judgment. And that judgment is very complex. Like they have given alternative answers. They are not very clearly telling you like how to write an answer. Then you may require an expert. And expert may be extensively involved. Auditor has not previously used the work of an auditor's expert and no prior knowledge of the expert's competence, capability and objectivity. That means you don't know that heart specialist. First time you are coming across. Because if you have been working with them regularly, you know how that expert is going to respond. Then you can plan well in advance. Okay, you can tell him, okay, do come on this day. Today also you can call today and tell tomorrow morning you come. Okay, you know that because that is the relationship you have established. But if you are planning to work with one new expert, then should you not think well before in advance about the timing? Because on the day when you call him, that expert may not be available. But if your friend with whom you are regularly dealing, he may come over a phone call. That's why your timing extends. It should be more extensive. It's more different if you don't have the you're not previously used or you don't have their knowledge. Expert is performing procedures that is integral to the audit rather than being consulted to provide an advice. That means their expert's work is very integral. It's very important to the part of the audit. And expert is an auditor's expert or not subject to the firm's quality control procedures. Expert is auditor's external expert and is not subject to. That means he is not your internal expert. If you would have been internal expert, you could have been applied to the same policies and procedure, but he is the third party who have got their own SQC. Since they are not subject to quality control procedure, so my procedures becomes more extensive now. My involvement will become too much. Okay, so I can say which factors suggest that auditors may require more involvement. In simple to tell, because this is a language may confuse you. I can in a simple language to tell you which factors suggest that it requires more involvement of auditors. If it is a significant matter, then auditor may have to involve more with that expert, or he has not previously used that expert work. Expert work is very integral. It's a subject matter only, or you are not subject to the firm's quality control procedure. Yes, so this is all about your nature, timing. Next, competence and capability. Yeah, we can see that, but before we will write this map, we'll go to the nature of audit procedures. There are only two concepts. One, why nature, timing, extent vary. Nature means auditor's involvement, what auditor is going to do, which portion auditor is going to do. Timing means, okay, should I appoint that expert right now or at the end? Extent means to what extent I should involve him. Why it is going to vary from organization to organization? One, nature of matter. Significance of matter. ROMM, auditor's knowledge. If you see, this is the same points like this here. Nature, ROMM, auditor's knowledge. Management expert will go out because your management expert is not going to be appointed, because if it is appointed, then actually we are not discussing point number 2. Now, since you are appointing a third party, firms I hope students you are getting this, your understanding of flow. Firms QC procedure. Are they subject to quality control procedures? These are all the factors will decide why nature, timing, extent of the audit procedures related to an appointment of an expert is going to change from organization to organization. Then we decided here why sometimes there is more involvement by auditor. Sometimes you may have to decide to give more consideration. You may have to do extensive involvement. Or I can say, okay, we can rename it because we'll use some keywords of this. Why extensive procedure I can say as a involvement. Why sometimes auditor will extensively get involved when it hiring expert? One, significant matter. Okay, like imagine that patient happens to be a very rich. Now doctor, will he just suggest or he will also go along with the patient? Because doctor doesn't want to lose his client and he's a high paying party. In such cases, doctor also go, no? He just doesn't refer, go to that expert. He will also go, we come and sit in my car, I only will take you. He will also stay there. Why? Because matter is so significant now. He's a high net worth patient. So you can say why doctor or why an auditor will have an extensive involvement, or not previous expert. Okay, like for example, every time you refer to one client, doctor will not go, but this time now you have referred to a new surgeon, new expert. Now the doctor also first time, no, he, in order to have that conversation and all, in order to see how that expert is going to do work, he want to see how that his facilities are. Doctor may decide to visit that expert, which otherwise you would not have done. That's why this time it becomes extensive, because first time. Expert procedures are integral. Like for example, what is this integral? I can say something like this. Like doctor referring to a patient for heart surgery. No, it is not integral. Because straight away that patient is out in the hands of one surgeon. But if your work is to get the report and form an opinion, then it becomes very integral, because your opinion comes into picture. Okay, so similarly, if any item of the financial statement is very integral, like that part is very important, and it's going to like going concern related issue. Now, an expert has to evaluate that going concern and comment. Now it has become, his work has become very integral to your opinion. You cannot separate it. You cannot just give any qualified opinion. Except this part, everything is true and fair. It becomes very important. Then you may have to extensively get involved. because standards also say, students, it's not that you didn't get evidence and you say accept and give qualified opinion. You have to try your level best to get the evidence. And the last one, expert is not subject to firms quality control policies. And you see, students, if you observe up to here, see, all things are interrelated, followed now, and they may be a bit confusing. Not even a single RTP or MTP questions they have given on this up to here. Okay, from now onwards it is simple, easy, because we find some questions also. It's very easy to remember. But if you see the first requirement and the second requirement, first requirement also this particular point, and it has got connection to all the both the points here. They look very similar because they talk about the same thing there, but they are a bit different. So you can expect examination questions on this. So mark these concepts very important, very important. This and this. These three concepts are very important to you because they can ask you any question. Anyhow, you once you figure out these are the points we have to write, you can always address that. Okay, so I hope this is fine. So the next element for you is the competency and capability objective of the auditor's expert. So this we will check in the next class.